Technology is always changing how we live our lives, from how we shop to how we pay, travel, and communicate.
Without the startup ecosystem, what were we doing? We were mostly doing IT services. We were not innovating enough. Most of the products that were being built in India were questionable.
Technology has undergone some dramatic changes in the past 2 decades. Things are more accessible now, more often than not, just a click away.
I think startup ecosystem is playing a defining role in making the country self-reliant and truly independent. And I think we should just continue to do that.
We are living in the era of digital disruption, and startups have had a huge role to play in this.
Everything changed in India with the Flipkart story, right? Before Flipkart, I don't know many people who could stand up and go to their dad and say, hey, I want to start up a company. I think the buzz has changed the way we look at startups. It made us realize that you could start from having very little and end up being richer than most industrialists in this country.
Young entrepreneurs aspired to achieve big. Investors trusted them, and the government supported their ambitions.
So if you go back in time, one of the first few would be a book my show or a make my trip, right? So flight booking was a demand of the market, and hence make my trip came into being. Watching movies in theaters was the way to go, and booking tickets was a problem, and hence book my show, right? So I think startups have evolved based on local market need for us.
These startups have brought about a digital revolution and made our lives easier. And more importantly, they have made India more independent and self-reliant.
What you see today is sort of the result of what has been happening in the last couple of decades, I would say.
The prevalence of very cheap data in India has made all of this possible.
Today, India is home to around 40,000 active startups. In just 8 months this year, 21 startups had already made it to the Unicorn Club, a term used to describe firms with a valuation of more than $1 billion. The Indian startup ecosystem is maturing, and it happens to be one of the key pillars in making India truly digital.
I think the next large revolution that is coming in India is coming from startups building in India for India.
As India celebrates its 75th Independence Day, we look at different sectors to show how tech startups are becoming problem solvers, empowering citizens of India and helping the country reduce its dependence on foreign players. Before we discuss apps and services that you and I enjoy on a regular basis, let's first talk about tech solutions that Indian startups are building to bolster India's defense efforts. These emerging players are using technologies such as drones, real-time data, artificial intelligence and robotics to help keep our borders safe. One such startup is Cron AI, a deep tech company.
So think of us like the Qualcomm and Android of the 3D sensing industry. Now imagine you want to make a border security solution, or you want to make something which is an autonomous delivery pod, or any kind of autonomous solution. All these solutions or systems would require to see the world in different contexts, in different conditions, in different weather conditions, changing dynamics. Now for that to happen, you need something which allows these solutions to do so. And that's where SenseEdge or Cron AI's products come in.
A laser and infrared-based technology is a security solution that has been developed by Cron AI. It is being deployed on Indian borders to detect infiltration and help take appropriate action.
Our partners like Slingshot, Adore have taken our technology and created solutions like Kavach, which are key parts of monitoring and securing borders, where they take sensors, our perception software stack, fuse the 3D data, and are able to give very, very accurate, reliable information sets about what is coming, detection, classification, forecasting.
These deep tech startups are not just building solutions to help secure borders. They're also focusing on other critical infrastructure. And given India's diverse geography, it becomes imperative to have indigenous solutions.
let's say a Bangalore airport or a Bombay airport experiences much more rain, whereas a Delhi airport or a Delhi infrastructure is much more complex with other problems. Now, how do you create solutions to secure all these complex dynamics or all these complex different scenarios? So that's where our platform comes into play, where people can create very, very specialized solutions for doing so. In fact, some of our partners are already serving these companies or these people who are securing these larger airports or larger critical infrastructures and leveraging this technology to secure these infrastructures.
There are many other promising deep tech startups like Cron AI that are pushing autonomous solutions, facilitating urban mobility and empowering the security and defense industries.
You have so many VCs specifically focused on deep tech, on hardware, on difficult tech as they call it, space tech, which 5 years ago, if you actually went out and started searching for investors who were excited about it, you maybe find 5 or 6 on the top of your list, and that list keeps on going now.
Who would have thought that one day making payments in India would just be a matter of a few taps on the mobile screen? The synergy between finance and technology called fintech has ushered in a new revolution.
Fintech is a very local problem. India has a very different financial ecosystem. India has a very different regulatory ecosystem than the rest of the world. And fortunately, India also has been one of the most innovative countries when it comes to creating the fintech ecosystem. Like when you look at UPI, there's nothing like that across the entire world. Like even Western countries, the payment ecosystem of Western countries is also significantly weaker when you look at things like UPI and a lot of other fintech innovations that are happening in India.
Digital payments and mobile wallets have made online transactions of money easy and hassle-free.
I think it is a combination of multiple players working with that. I would not say that it's like it's Razorpay or any one particular player or one particular ecosystem participant who has led this growth. It has been a combination of multiple things. First is the ecosystem itself changing, the increased availability of internet for cheap, with effects like Geo playing their role in making internet accessible to most population. The increased access to banking due to demonetization, GST, and COVID and multiple other factors that happened, and the consumers becoming digitally aware, the merchants becoming digitally aware, and finally players such as ours who are doing their own things to increase customer awareness and increase merchant awareness on accepting payments. I think all of them have worked in synchrony to create this really thriving fintech ecosystem.
Startups like Paytm, Razorpay, PhonePe and MobiKwik have had a huge role to play in this. And the launch of indigenously developed unified payment interface by the government has further led to an exponential growth and adoption of digital payments in the country.
Every time I visit outside of India, now it feels that payments is primitive in most of the countries outside of India, and payments in India feel a lot more futuristic.
The facts speak for themselves. Digital payments have grown by 80% in the last 250 days in India. The rapid growth of fintech players has also helped in accelerating financial inclusion.
Fintech startups are using technology in a big way to democratize distribution of financial services. So today, I am confident that just like in the last 10 years, digital payments has reached now 250 million Indians, and this number is going to increase rapidly in the next few years to 600-700 million.
The digital payments industry in India is nascent but fast evolving. It is expected to account for a 71% share of all payments in India by 2025. Clearly, the fintech sector continues to be a leading light of the startup ecosystem.
Whatever growth that we have seen in fintech so far, it's still very, very early days. There's a lot of growth that is still possible. I think India as a country has a lot of scope for financial inclusion.
When it comes to health and wellness, sometimes people struggle to get the right care. At times, finding the right doctor is a challenge, or procuring medicines could be tough. Enter startups that are redefining the healthcare industry. Among them, one of the leading names is Practo, which is born from a personal pain point.
Practo's idea is actually very driven from a personal journey that Shashank had, and I walked that journey with him. So his dad was undergoing a surgery. He needed a second opinion. He reached out to a lot of different doctors, and he was trying to share a lot of medical data with these doctors to get a second opinion. And that's the point we realized, and this is way back in 2008, that technology is, prevalence of technology, specifically in healthcare in Indian context, was non-existent. We met a lot of doctors and we realized most of them were not using any technology, and a very few small group of doctors who were using it were using products which are mostly built for US market, extremely complicated, does not have any Indian context, no localization. And that's when we decided that we really need to make healthcare is a very high anxiety need for consumer. Every time you have needs of healthcare, generally it's a high anxiety event, and it's also very complex. For most of us, we actually don't really understand it. And for us, from very day one, it was very clear that how do you make that connection between doctor and patient experience as convenient as possible, so that you can focus on your or your loved one's health.
Today, more than 3,000 startups in India focus on health tech. They cover areas like preventive healthcare, analytics, pathology, emergency services, among other things. Some of them are also bridging the healthcare divide between urban and rural areas.
Over the last 10 years, as the market has matured, and I think mobile and mobile data has actually played a very important role in the explosion that we're seeing in health tech startups, is now we have that technology which is available to the consumers, using which they can access healthcare very, very easily. And we have seen every part of healthcare, whether it is medicine, telemedicine, diagnostics, hospitals, surgeries, like every different part, analytics, like every different part of healthcare has actually seen a number of startups come out and solve very specific problems in each of those areas.
We today offer teleconsultations, which is a remote way to get to your doctors. No matter which part of the country you are in, you could always get access to the best doctors on the platform. That's one. Second, you could get access to diagnostics, which is you have a blood test to be done, a pathology test to be done, or an imaging test like a CT scan, MRI, etc. We facilitate that because we have a wide network of diagnostics providers across the country. And the third thing that we do is deliver medicines. Imagine that you came to the platform, you saw a doctor, and you have a prescription in your hand. You could simply click on a button, order the medicines, and it comes home and so on.
The pandemic has exposed problems in healthcare systems worldwide, including in India, and the startups can address some of these issues, particularly those related to access. We just showed you how these emerging and established startups are troubleshooting problems with technology, helping in building a stronger economy, striving to make our lives better, and making India more secure. But that is not all. Indian startup ecosystem is thriving, and young entrepreneurs are even getting better at addressing everyday problems with the help of technological solutions.
The startups in India are really changing the game.
Startups as a segment has a very strong role to play in making India Atmanirbhar or self-reliant because the kind of innovation that is coming up bottoms up from startups in India, it's Indian entrepreneurs working on ground, speaking to customers, figuring out what their problems are and then solving for them. And not just competing locally, but also competing with sometimes global giants in solving those challenges and staying ahead of the curve.
Pick up your phone and you can get a cab at your service right at your doorstep, or plan your holiday without having to call a travel agent or a hotel. That is how convenient travel has become in India, courtesy homegrown ride-hailing applications and travel apps.
You have more and more employment opportunities in India, number one. Number two, you have more and more products which are specialized and solving the problem, which are very unique to India, which was never seen before. Like a good example, electric scooters from Ola. I think the way they're addressing the problem, no international brand could have thought of it.
Food delivery startups are another bunch that have made our lives easier. And grocery shopping has never been this hassle-free. While Indian startups are growing by leaps and bounds in various sectors, there are still a few sectors where there is a vacuum, such as communication and messaging.
In India, it is limited to the 1-2% of India which knows English very well to go and have a discussion in that language. Whereas 98% of India which uses the internet actually has no voice on the internet today, right? So when we, we're building Vocal, which is our question answer platform, a lot of the answerers on Vocal actually said, why only answer questions? Why can't I just say what is on my mind? And that's what triggered us to get into the details and saw that, 98% actually don't have access to come and speak on the internet. And basically that's how we started Coup as an experiment to enable voices in local language.
While Indian Twitter rival Coup has set out on a journey to take on American apps, it has still a long way to go.
There's a very specific time, a window of opportunity for us as Indian entrepreneurs to build these fundamentally empowering products for the Indian audience, right? Using Indian language as a hook.
Other startups in diverse spheres such as space, drone, sports and fitness are also on the rise and making a mark. India is currently the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, and it's fueled by the government's Startup India flagship initiative. The domain is poised to gain further momentum.
The number of employments being created by startups is significant. You will be seeing more and more products which are being built which are so specifically designed to solve problems locally that we would have never seen before.
According to a report by 314 Capital, the Indian startup ecosystem is set to see a 3-time growth in valuation, from $315 billion currently to $1 trillion by 2025. It also projects that the number of startups will jump to 100,000 in 2025 and employ 3.25 million people. That will clearly be the golden age for startups in India.
You have so many more funds, you have so much more tech available, you have so many more incentives available. And the next thing, so many more people willing to work at startups. And I think that has been the big difference over the past few years.
So there's a long way to go. We're in our extreme nascent stages in terms of building our own independent, ecosystem. But I think we have all the potential. And, there's no better way than, entering our 75th year of independence with the thought of becoming independent digitally as well.
We are already seeing, for example, UPI has been launching in a couple of markets outside India. So we're already seeing some of those exports happening. But in the next couple of years, I'm definitely completely confident that a lot of fintech innovations that are being built in India will be adopted by the rest of the world as well.
Now let's hear what startups need to achieve their full potential.
I think startups are getting enough support from the government, but I think ease of doing business has to come in more. IP protection laws have to become better. We need to start looking a bit more simple with the regulations, especially with the money being poured into India. I'm seeing that we are still not realizing that for our technology to scale, money will be poured in from global enterprises. It's not like when we're talking about any other country in the world. Everywhere it is about being global. We have to understand for evolution locally also, we'd have to start thinking global. We will need global expertise. We will need global money because we don't have enough money here to scale up deep tech at the level it needs to be. So we need to simplify that. We need to start looking more global on our taxation and our policies. It should not be so complicated, which it still is somewhere.
I think the government has done a lot. I mean, India is probably one of the only countries which has a very strong, focused startup policy.
Regulatory change is what we want to be controlled so that startups can actually understand what is the rule of the law, and within those boundary constraints, what can we build over the next few years.
Are at that inflection point with NDHM, the new initiative by the central government, which is the National Digital Health Mission, actually brings some of those concepts around how to create a completely decentralized telemedicine network or pharmacy or diagnostics, creating a distributed, federated digital health record sharing infrastructure where no single system stores all the health data, but as a consumer, you get access to all your data across throughout your journey, which is extremely valuable.
With the National Digital Health Mission, I think this is the government sort of has set the ball rolling. And that's been very encouraging to see.
Creating that awareness around how to build something out of scratch, how to start a startup, how to get advice, how to get mentorship. I think those are certain things where the government and the ecosystem can work together
The startup ecosystem in India has opened up a lot of avenues for young, dynamic people. If you have an idea, hold it, nurture it, and take the plunge.
Think of a solution that's 10x better than what's available in the market.
I think I always say the same thing to everybody who's starting up. The only person who knows how to solve the problem is you. Because if I knew it better, I would already start up a company in that space and make a unicorn.
I think if there was ever a great time to launch a startup, it is now. So just take that plunge.
Surround yourself with people who are as interested, as excited about the problem that you're solving. Not the solution, but the problem.
There has not been a better time, to do a startup in India. Make a business plan, find the right team, create a vision and a roadmap, and get started on a journey. It is not a short journey. It's not a T20 match. It's a test match and a very long test match. And if you're not willing to stick up to your own vision and not willing to commit 5-10 years to it, then you can't expect anything big will come out of it.
They say any time is a good time to start a business. Chase that vision and never give up. If you're not sure of your idea, remember what American entrepreneur Russell Simmons said. You just have to pay attention to what people need and what has not been done.
We are the best and we can beat the best is an attitude with which, the youth of India has to start, building technology products.
It's the right time for us to start thinking, make in India, for Indians, by Indians.